the billionaire's toy. Owning a football club used to be a rich man's hobby, something you did for fun after you'd already made your fortune elsewhere. Today, it's one of the most complicated financial instruments in the world. You're not just buying a team. You're buying a brand, a media company, a real estate asset, and a loyalty machine that never turns off. Most owners will never see a normal return on their investment through profit alone. And yet, the world's richest people are still lining up to buy in. That should tell you something is going on beneath the surface that has nothing to do with trophies. Purchase price. Buying a football club is rarely about the club itself. It's about the price of entry into a closed circle. When Todd Boehly's group bought Chelsea for over £4 billion, most of that money didn't even go toward buying the team. It went toward paying off debt and acquiring the stadium and infrastructure around it. The actual football club, the players, the badge, the fans, that part is almost a side effect of the deal. Owners are really buying access. Access to a global audience, access to political relevance, access to a level of visibility that no other asset class can offer at that price. You could spend $4 billion on almost anything else in the world and get less attention than one Saturday afternoon match on television. The sportswashing play. Some owners aren't buying a football club to make money at all. They're buying reputation. When a state-linked fund buys a club like Manchester City or Newcastle United, the return they're chasing isn't profit, it's perception. A football club gives a country a friendly face. Instead of headlines about human rights or oil politics, you get headlines about a last-minute winner and a trophy parade. This is called sports washing, and it works because football fans are emotionally loyal in a way that shareholders never are. Once you support a club, you defend it, even when the ownership behind it makes you uncomfortable. That loyalty is the actual product being purchased. The team on the pitch is just the delivery method. Matchday revenue. Here's where the business finally starts to look like a normal business. Every ticket, every pie, every overpriced pint sold inside the stadium on a match day counts as revenue. For a massive club like Real Madrid or Manchester United, this can bring in well over £100 million a year. But here's the catch. Stadiums are expensive to build, expensive to maintain, and they only get used around 25 times a season for home league games. Imagine owning a restaurant that's only allowed to open 25 days a year, but you still have to pay staff, insurance, and upkeep for the other 340. That's the matchday business in a nutshell. It looks huge on paper, but it's incredibly inefficient compared to almost any other type of venue on the planet. Broadcasting rights. This is where the real money lives. Television deals are the single biggest source of income for most top-flight clubs, and it's not particularly close. The Premier League alone sells its broadcasting rights for billions of pounds a season, and that money gets split among the 20 clubs based on performance and popularity. A club like Liverpool or Arsenal can earn well over £150 million a season from broadcasting money before they've sold a single ticket. This is also why relegation is so financially terrifying. Drop out of the Premier League, and you don't just lose prestige, you lose access to hundreds of millions of pounds in television revenue overnight. Some clubs have gone bankrupt within a year of relegation, simply because they built their entire business model around a broadcasting check that stopped arriving. Commercial deals and sponsorships. Every logo you see on a shirt is a negotiation worth tens of millions of pounds. Shirt sponsors, sleeve sponsors, stadium naming rights, official airline partners, official noodle partners. Yes, that's a real thing some clubs actually have. This is the part of the business that looks the most like a normal corporation. Manchester United signed a shirt deal worth over £90 million a year with a car manufacturer. That single logo is worth more annually than most clubs in the world are worth entirely. The bigger a club's global fan base, the more valuable this becomes, because sponsors aren't paying for the players. They're paying for eyeballs in Lagos, Jakarta, Los Angeles, and Mumbai, all watching the same badge every weekend, the transfer market casino. Buying and selling players is technically an investment strategy, even if it rarely feels like one. Clubs spend hundreds of millions of pounds acquiring young talent, hoping to develop them and sell them later for a profit. Some clubs, like Benfica or Ajax, have built entire business models around this exact strategy, finding cheap unknown talent and selling it on for 10 times the price a few years later. But for every success story, there are dozens of expensive failures sitting unused on a bench, still being paid a full salary every single week. A player who costs £50 million and never plays is still a £50 million liability sitting on the balance sheet. This is why smart recruitment departments are now just as valuable to a club as a good manager, sometimes more. The debt problem? A lot of football ownership isn't done with cash. It's done with borrowed money, and that changes everything. Some owners use a method called a leverage buyout, where they borrow money to buy the club, and then load that debt directly onto the club itself, rather than paying it personally. The Glazer family's takeover of Manchester United is the most famous example of this in the world. The club ended up owing hundreds of millions of pounds in debt that had nothing to do with transfers or wages, just interest payments from the takeover itself. Imagine buying a house with someone else's credit card, then handing that credit card bill to the house and telling it to figure it out. That's essentially what a leverage buyout does to a football club, and fans usually don't realize the damage until years later when there's suddenly no money for signings. Owning the stadium changes everything. Clubs that own their own stadium unlock a completely different level of financial power compared to clubs that rent one. If you own the ground, you control concerts, tours, conferences, and naming rights, all year round, not just on match days. Tottenham built a stadium that hosts NFL games specifically because they realized American football brings in massive revenue on the same pitch their own players use on weekends. A stadium isn't just a football venue anymore, it's a year-round entertainment venue that happens to host football 25 times a season. This is why so many modern owners are just as focused on construction plans as they are on transfer targets. The exit strategy. Eventually, almost every owner is thinking about one final number. What will this club be worth when I sell it? Even owners who lose money every single year through wages and transfers can still walk away rich because the value of the club itself keeps rising. Chelsea sold for roughly triple what Roman Abramovich originally paid for it 2 decades earlier, despite the club barely turning an annual profit during his entire ownership. This is the real secret of football economics. You don't need the club to make money every year. You need the club to be worth more than you paid for it when you eventually decide to leave. Football clubs behave less like traditional businesses and more like rare paintings. They can lose money quietly for years, while still appreciating in value the entire time. That's the real economics of owning a football team. It's not about profit and loss like a normal company. It's about reputation, leverage, broadcasting deals, and one final sale that makes the previous decade of losses completely irrelevant.